Thunder Grunt.
Welcome to Writers Blockbusters. I'm your host, Bob Rose, and with me again, for the first time in a long time, is introduce yourselves.
I am Jimmy George. I am a script consultant and screenwriter. My Twitter handle is @JimmyRGeorge.
I am Jamie Nash. I'm a screenwriter, and my Twitter handle is @Jamie_Nash. That's a new addition for the pandemic.
The underscore?
Yeah, no, throwing the Twitter handle at the beginning, dropping it early.
Oh, dropping it early. Well, yeah, I'm Bob Rose, and I'm @ThunderGruntBob. Bob. So, hi guys.
Bob.
I mean, it's been long enough that I think we should all say it's good to be back, right? Like we're not.
Yeah, totally.
I know we don't have to be totally on business for everything, but
yeah, no.
Yeah. At the beginning here.
February was the last time we sat in a room together. So what? 6 months? 7 months?
It has to be about 7 months.
Oh,
yeah.
You guys were the two of the last humans I actually hung out with.
Same.
Before this happened. So
yeah.
But and that episode. So thank you for all the listeners, because that episode has just, since it's the last episode, has gotten up to like our highest view count ever.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for listening. But
yeah, definitely.
Today we're going to talk about
Ninja Turtles.
Say what? Ninja Turtles, right?
Oh, Ninja Turtle love. Ninja Turtle love.
Yeah. But today we're going to talk about the last blockbuster in theaters before hell came to town, right? And that's The Invisible Man. And the first thing I think we're going to ask is, who wrote this shit?
Yeah.
It was written by Mr. Sir Anthony. No, I don't even know. I don't even know where I was going with that. Leigh Whannell. Leigh Whannell.
Did you get the name right?
Well, I am tempted to go like the Family Guy Cool Whip version, like Whannell.
Whannell.
Maybe not Whannell. But Leigh is like one of my favorite screenwriters, actually. Like, I love all the stuff he kind of pulls off. You know, he started with Saw. He was kind of James Wan's writing partner back in the day. Mm-hmm. And even now, I guess today, because I guess he wrote like Insidious, Conjuring. I think he may have done a rewrite. I'm not looking at the credits.
He did Insidious 3. I know. Already, he did all the Insidiouses. He rewrote all of them, didn't he?
Wrote all of them. He directed Insidious 3.
Right.
He also did like Cooties, I remember, which
Cooties
I thought
is
was
great.
cool because it was,
Cooties.
it's like horror comedy, you know. So he's like one of my favorites. I always check out his screenplays. It's funny, this screenplay in particular, it's hard to find. It's not online. I couldn't find it.
I searched high and low. I couldn't find it either.
Yeah, I'm surprised because most of his stuff is out there. Then again, I'm not sure if Upgrade is out there, which is his other recent Blumhouse
Probably my favorite movie
directorial.
he's made, honestly. But yeah, I'd love to read that script.
No, I think he's great. I mean, I think his scripts. What I was going to say about today's scripts, even before I get into the box office, I think this script is exactly the kind. I mean, this is a really lame thing to say. You should write what you love, all that stuff. But I think this is the kind of script screenwriters should look at, of the types of scripts you should be writing on spec to break out. Because it's low budget, it's high concept, it's a page turner, you know, assuming that he wrote it just as cool as the movie.
A Shane Black type of script, right?
It hasn't, even though it's based on IP, it didn't have to be based on IP. This could just as easily been, you know, Hollow Man 5 or whatever, the new reboot of Hollow Man. Invisible. It could just be called Invisible or something.
Right? Yeah.
It'll be fine.
You could
not to
argue
mention
man being in the
Man.
title has a purpose, though.
Yeah.
You really could. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Invisible Man, I guess it's in the public domain anyway. I didn't check the dates on it.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, like I look at it and I'm saying, yeah, that's the kind of script I should write. That's the kind of script. If you're writing on spec, again, not if you're a romance writer or something, maybe you shouldn't write Invisible Man. But if you're in the genre world, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. This kind of that under $5 million has kind of a good theme, a strong theme that resonates today. And it's very, very strong kind of script with a big idea in a small kind of package in some ways.
Now, you said that it's public domain as far as the IP, but this is a Universal movie, right?
It is a Universal movie, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I wonder if it was their attempt prior. Do you know when it was developed? I don't actually know this. Like, was it when they were trying to do the Dark Universe, or did this come around after that?
So I have some stories about this.
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, the short answer to your question is he was invited to a meeting, I think at Universal or Blumhouse, and they kind of ambushed him. Like, what do you think about the Invisible Man? He's done a lot of interviews and talked about this. He just kind of riffed. And his main riff was just, I would do it from the woman's point of view, from the victim's point of view. That was kind of his main riff. And he walked out of the meeting and he says, like, his agent was blowing up his phone, like, hey, they love the idea. They love your take. And he's like, what take? I just said, I do it from the victim's point of view. And he got the gig that way. And this was after Upgrade, so he had already probably dealt with, they were probably looking for a next project to do with him. The part about the Dark Universe, so this is the part I was going to mention. One of the coolest Hollywood meetings I ever had was a Dark Universe meeting. And I feel like I can say this now because
It's pretty much dead now. So.
Yeah, I wasn't like signed. I never signed an NDA or anything. And it wasn't a Dark Universe meeting, but writing partner and I, we wrote a script that we felt like could, land us talking about working.
Hold on, Jamie, you cut out.
We lost Jamie during this amazing story.
Jamie, go back like 30 seconds. You totally cut out.
Oh no. I'm tempted to plug in here. I won't worry about it. So should I start over or where
just
should I
start? Yeah,
this is amazing.
Anyone that's listening knows we're recording this over the internet. So go ahead.
Internet.
Just start from you had a meeting that you had you didn't sign an NDA.
Okay. So one of the coolest meetings I had, it was a general. There were no NDAs and stuff, so I think I can talk about it now. But it was me and a writing partner. We did a script that was kind of a take on old IP. It was a horror take, kind of that reimagined old IP as a horror movie. So a producer really liked it, and the producer was working on the Dark Universe. So we kind of went to this meeting thinking it'd be cool to work on like Creature from the Black Lagoon, and that was kind of our agenda. We were like, let's get in there and just say, oh, we love Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's our favorite movie. It actually was my writing partner, one of his favorite movies. That's his favorite monster. So we went into this meeting and we were talking up Creature from Black Lagoon. We were talking up old, Universal horror and all that stuff. And he said, hey, you guys like Universal horror? Come with me, right? And we left and we went for a walk across Universal. We passed, I think Amblin was right next door. I was trying to peek in Steven Spielberg's windows. He takes us into this room and he's like, wait right here. He turns this thing on and there's this like kind of cheesy but expensive haunted house, like a Frankenstein lights up and there's sparks and fog comes out. And there's all these like this lab, like they built this lab and then this like this old bookcase creaks open, right? and you had to go through the secret door to get to the office, and there was just boring offices behind the secret door, right? And it's just amazing to me that they would do this, like
was this like in preparation for the Dark Universe?
Yeah, it was the Dark Universe's office is what it was. so they built this big like haunted house thing, and you had to go through. Can you imagine working there every day? I got to go past Frankenstein and through the thing.
I'd love it.
So we go back in the office, and that's the most interesting part of the story. The rest of it's not as interesting. But he walked us around. He took us in this room, and he said, stays in this room. So I won't give you the details of the room, but we walked in the room, and there was concept art for all these amazing, $200 million movies starring very famous people. I think like some of them I could say like Angelina Jolie, like painted, and I don't even think she had signed yet, but there were all these paintings all over the room of these awesome Universal movies. And there was a guy, painting. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" They're like, "Oh, this is Crash McCreary." And if you look up Crash McCreary and see all the stuff he's designed, he's just sitting there painting all these awesome pictures all over the walls. And they had rooms of these walls with these like any one of these paintings I would take off the wall and hang in my house. They were
that
amazing.
Beautiful.
Like, yeah. And they were, and then he took us in another room, and there's this guy like typing at a keyboard, and it's like this really small room, and the guy's like just sitting there, and he's like, we kind of scared him when we walked in, and he's like, "Oh, hey, he goes, I didn't know you were in here," and he shut the door. He goes, "Shh, he's working on Creature from the Black Lagoon." And then we moved to another room. It was like the Dark Universe factory almost in there. So anyway, that's my.
You know what? That makes it all kind of sadder, doesn't it? Because how badly it failed. Like they actually made the Office a haunted house motif. It all crumbles that quick.
No, they were going huge, and then when the Mummy movie came out, and it just it wasn't quite right. I think they kind of. This is me talking. This isn't them, but I think it becoming kind of a Tom Cruise movie may have just gotten the thing off to a bad start. It wasn't really the right foot forward for the universe. So then when the Invisible Man got greenlit, we're still kind of in the embers of they were still thinking like there might be a Bride of Frankenstein movie with Bill Condon, and there was some other ideas out there. And when Blumhouse kind of said, "Hey, what if we start doing some of the Dark Universe?" there was still rumors that they would be doing some pieces of it, and then there would be the big Tom Cruise version of it, and they would all kind of come together. I think after Invisible Man did what it did, and it just kind of died, I think it's been rebooted now to let's do more like Invisible Man. And I think there was even a James Wan announcement that he was going to do Frankenstein next. And I think there have been a couple other announcements like that. They are taking these pieces. So now Dark Universe is more Blumhouse than it is Tom Cruise. So I don't know that we'll see Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll again.
Honestly, he was my favorite part of that movie. If I had to choose a favorite part of that movie I didn't like.
I didn't see it.
Well,
it's this, you know what it is? It's an action movie, and that's the problem.
Gotcha.
It is.
Yeah, it's not a horror movie. Whereas the movie we're talking about is very much, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe it's a thriller or horror, but there's always that edge. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's hard to say. Like, I consider them all in the same bucket.
Yeah. It's horror all the way.
But you could put...
Where would you put it in the video store?
Oh, in the video store, it definitely goes in the horror section.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
The thriller section is usually for anything that doesn't have fantastical elements.
Yeah.
From what I remember in my own store, but this would go horror, definitely. But Jamie's not
like
wrong.
Halloween would go in the horror section.
Yeah.
And technically, the first one doesn't have fantastical elements.
Right.
True.
Right. You're right. No, but this one has that, interplay, romantic, harassment type of thing. So it kind of fits in thriller. Like, it makes sense that thriller is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Horror thriller, terrible thing to say.
It's just like the movies it's riffing off of are thrillers. That's why I kind of say that. Like,
Yeah,
it is
that's
riffing
true.
off of
Yeah.
Sleeping with the Enemy and things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a
1980s.
version of this that's like doesn't have a invisible man suit
yeah,
that you could write, and it would be
Just like-
nigh the same. Like a guy fakes his death and starts fucking with somebody to make, you know what I mean? Like, and he does all the same. He has all the same goals. There's that version.
No.
Yeah.
What if he was a ninja hacker? Horror or thriller?
Then it wouldn't. No, you're right though. That would change the genre a little bit. I don't know what it would be. I think we'd have to see the actual movie to know. What we didn't. What was the box office on this, Jamie?
It surprised me, and I'm not sure if it got cut off by the pandemic because it really came out like lightning, right? It made close to 30 million. It made 28 million in its opening weekend. For a small movie, again, the budget on these Blumhouse things are usually on average like.
Keeping the listeners in suspense.
You blanked out again, Jamie. I think you're back now.
No.
Jamie said the budgets on these Blumhouse movies are usually ...
Yeah, the budgets on these Blumhouse movies are usually about $5 million, and this particular one, I don't know what it was. It says $7 million. That sounds about right. And it made 64 million domestically and 65 internationally. But I bet you some of its back end got cut off with the pandemic.
Yeah, wasn't it only week 1 or 2 when everybody started self isolating?
I think it was even deeper than that.
Okay.
Because I remember actually like Leigh Whannell on Twitter saying you can still go see The Invisible Man, and I was already in quarantine. And I went, it was like past mid-March. So it was at least out for that long.
Yeah.
And you said 7 million was the
7 million's the listed budget on IMDb. And Blumhouse is usually 5 million. That's like their magic number. So that sounds about right.
Wow.
They probably paid Elizabeth Moss 2 million and then made it for 5.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah,
she might not get that much.
She's coming hot off Us, which kind of lives in that same fantastical but thriller world, I guess. Or is that too fantastical?
Tale, so.
Oh yeah, Handmaid's Tale, right?
Yeah.
As we live through Handmaid's Tale becoming a reality.
Yeah.
It's not funny at all.
No, not.
So where are we? Let's talk about the screenwriters. We already did.
Shaking the rust off.
Yeah, there's a lot of rust here, people.
I don't know. Maybe I did talk about him, but I went out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything you said, Jamie, at all.
Maybe we should do a take 2 just in case.
Yeah.
Jamie said, okay, so the name of the writer of this script is...
And then it's been blank since. It's been me and Jimmy just breathing heavy for 20 minutes. So, yeah, there is some inside information we got here for this because on Twitter, Leigh actually Leigh, like I know him. He posts our buddy Leigh that we'll definitely tag, and he'll be like, "You guys, you want to help me write a movie?" He posted his initial notebook when he started writing this on Twitter, like straight up for the public to read, and it's got some interesting insights in there, doesn't it?
Not really. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, Jamie, you put it in the outline.
Yeah, I'm following Jamie's.
Yeah, Jamie, I'm sure you got something to add here.
I didn't really notice anything. I don't know why you bring it up. No. So one of the things in his interviews he said was he said before he goes into a project, he likes to dig out screenwriting books and just read through the basics just for yucks and giggles before he writes things and stuff like that. So in this case, he said he went to master class. He went to that master class online and he watched Aaron Sorkin's thing.
Okay.
How about that?
And what I realized when I was reading it, I was connecting the dots. He doesn't say this on Twitter. he's using those Aaron Sorkin techniques in this little thing, and on one of the pages, he's using the exact verbiage. Yeah, Sorkin uses. So I figured this would be a chance to foil, so you don't have to pay $100 for masterclass. We'll screw Sorkin over. And it actually coincides with things we say all the time as well on this podcast. So if you look at the pages, I mean, he starts out with, and I'll read a little bit of it, and I'll, of course, I'll go blank. So go check it out on Twitter. You can, I'm sure you can find it if you Google.
Maybe if I remember, I'll put a link to it on the main post of this episode.
Yeah, perfect.
If you want to read this tweet, yeah.
It almost feels like, after he got that agent call, he went out in his notebook and started to say, well, I need some more than just from the point of view of the victim. So what he writes is, it's about a woman. A man is trying to kill her, but he's invisible. That's where the movie comes from. It could have said he's a ninja hacker, but it says he's scientific. He's wearing a camouflage suit, fakes his death, and then he has why, and then gone insane, ? So you're almost seeing how he's brainstorming this from that meeting. Tormented by her, need to control her. He cannot handle that she has a new boyfriend, so that didn't make it into the final cut.
No.
Kills him. Questions, is it possible to fake death? And is it possible to place stipulation on inheritance? So he's already gone that inheritance route.
Right.
That ends up there.
Also, you can see where he took the boyfriend thing and molded it into something more innocent.
Yes.
Because obviously the character was supposed to be different originally in his mind, right?
Yeah, I love that he didn't go with the boyfriend because it makes her feel more isolated.
It does.
She's and that's one of the things I did want to talk about with this, just to interrupt really shortly. But and this is why monster, like horror movie monster in the house. This is a monster in the house. I was trying to in my head say, what's the house? What do you think the house is? And I think it's that she has no people around. Like nobody will help. Nobody believes her. The house is almost that or something.
No, she's totally trapped by the fact that she is alone. All the more so when her sister dies. He actually, you could argue that the monster takes away her early on with the email, so she is even alone then before she dies, right?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I don't have there's no easy answer.
There's not an easy answer, but there's definitely an isolated feeling.
Oh yeah,
and I think it's analogous too to this topic, this Me Too topic in some ways. Mm-hmm. She is alone in dealing with this. She has to deal with it alone. The people around her don't believe her for whatever reason. So I think there's some metaphors here. Anyway, the other one that I was having trouble with for Monster in the House was the sin, because I don't think she necessarily commits a sin, but maybe it's his sin. And that's something in Monster House. Sometimes the villain is the one that brings the sin, or society can bring the sin. So,
yeah, it's tough. It's very similar to Get Out. And if you're discussing it that way, to Get Out, and it reminded me a lot of Nancy and Nightmare on Elm Street, where I think they're very similar characters. Like Nancy is heroic from the moment we meet her, and so is Cecilia, but her Achilles heel is her family and how she lets her family emotionally manipulate her. So I think you could argue it's her love of dogs. I mean, really, that's the sin. If she didn't want to bring that dog with her. No, but from the beginning, right? So we're gonna talk about the opening sequence in a minute.
That's a good segue to the opening, but
good segue. The opening sequence really subtly establishes that Achilles heel for Cecilia, which is she got out on her own, but the second she started to rely on others that she cares about to save her, she almost gets imprisoned again. The second it becomes the sister who's literally behind the wheel instead of her, she's in danger again. So Like for me, it has something. I don't have it. I don't know what it is. It has something to do with allowing your family members to control your emotional state instead of yourself. Something like that.
It's there. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's not simple. It's not cut and dry.
No.
Yeah,
I don't think. Yeah.
It's simple in execution, complex in theme.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so the second outline page is the one that's right from the Sorkin masterclass. And it says it's labeled intention and obstacle. And that's what Sorkin, his first masterclass is like the most important thing is intention and obstacle. And honestly, we've talked about this 100 times because like with my college students, my first class is, I call it story DNA, which I think comes from Blake Snyder's book. And it's the hero, the goal, the obstacle, stakes. I think that's the most important thing to start with. Like the first thing you're going to break. And what's Leigh doing here? It's the first thing. You know, he's got this idea like Invisible Man, kind of this woman, this, you know, that whole thing. But then he goes, his next page is intention and obstacle. So he's got the hero. Now he's looking for the goal and the obstacle is the next page. And he doesn't go to stakes, and neither does Sorkin. I think stakes are important myself, but these are the most important. And then stakes is the next most important. So he writes, what does the character want? And want, keep in mind, is that's more the goal. That's the external, where the internal is the need, which is the lesson they need to learn, you know? And in this case, her want is to be safe, be alive. And maybe also I would add in the final script, it's to prove she's not crazy. You know, there's kind of a proof
that he is doing this to her life. It's not her letting it happen. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I would say they all kind of combine. And then what's the obstacle? The man is invisible, which is a really hard obstacle, and wants to destroy her or make her seem crazy or ruin her life or whatever it is. And anyway, that's the page I really wanted to hit at, because it's interesting that he did that. And honestly, I think that's what's instructional to writers. I think if you have an idea, the first thing to come up with is the hero, goal, obstacle, and then last but not least is stakes. It's what happens if they fail. And it's there, you know, because he underlines destroy in his notes. And destroy her, she'll basically be destroyed if she can't stay safe, stay alive, and prove that she's not crazy.
Yeah.
That's all I had for the outline. He has a couple other pages.
Does Sorkin ever talk about when you should establish stakes? Like at what point? Is that ever discussed?
Well, Sorkin doesn't really talk about stakes, I don't think, in the masterclass. He more just says everything's intention and obstacle. However, when I think about stakes, what I've realized over time is usually, and this is in Save the Cat. So in the break into Act 2, the stakes is usually the thing that pushes the hero to choose the goal. Like the hero doesn't want to choose the goal, but then typically stakes show up and the hero recognizes that if I don't do this, if I fail, if I let it slide, this bad thing's going to happen to me. And that's usually when the stakes kind of show up. But I do think they have to be established for the end of Act 2. Like and then they get raised as you go. You know, the stakes can get worse and worse.
Well, here's this one establishes right when he attacks the car, right? I mean, that's.
I think you understand that she's in danger from the second you meet her.
Right. True.
And it just keeps redefining and piling them on. I mean, there's a number of I'm like really passionate about a motivation because a lot of times I read scripts and there's like one thing at stake when really there can be 5-6 things at stake at any different time, at any different scene, depending on what's the problem in the individual moment to moment of the script. And this one does a good job. It keeps piling them on. You know, it's like freedom from imprisonment of her relationship, right? But then that becomes like a literal freedom from imprisonment from the institutionalization and even the threat of imprisonment from like crimes itself, like being permanently imprisoned. So it keeps redefining what imprisonment means for her. So that's like a huge motivating factor for her to succeed. And then there's financial stakes. You're getting $5 million contingent upon the fine print. Don't commit a crime. So what does he do? He puts her in situations where it's going to look like she commits a crime. And there's survival stakes. they move from her to he redefines it and says, if you fight back at me, I'm just going to hurt the people you love. And then the only person you'll have to blame is yourself. So the survival goes from her to her loved ones. So once again, her Achilles heel is the people she loves, much like a superhero in that way. But I think there's stakes from the moment she wakes up, like the moment you meet her.
I think there's different ways to look at it. Well, I do think that's true. You kind of look at her ordinary world, and her ordinary world, I look at the beginning as a prelude, a bit. Then I think her ordinary world is her living with, and I can't remember the guy's name that she's living with.
James.
James. Yeah.
James. Okay. Is it James?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my name, and I can't remember. She's living with that guy. I think that's her ordinary world for story's sake.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's a tricky one because I've been trying to figure out what the catalyst of this one is. Like, is it when he dies and she gets the inheritance? And I think that is it. It's like, oh, I don't trust this. There's something up. He's found me. Now I'm in trouble. Because really, that's what I think the inheritance is about: is finding her. It's like drawing her out. And I think she suspects then. So I feel like that's the catalyst. But then there's this debate section of, am I overreacting? Is it just a thing? I'm going to give the money to the girl and happy life still happens. Then it upticks when the ghostly stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when the stakes become real for her. Like, oh, this is real. This isn't just me being nervous or scared. This is a real thing. And I have to take action.
Yeah, there was this weird.
Maybe this is a good time also to ask, do you guys feel like what you just talked about, Jamie, do you feel like the movie's intention is to make us think it's possibly her? Or are we supposed to always assume it's him? I mean, I know it's called The Invisible Man, so we're already in the fact that he is probably an invisible man.
Jamie, do you mind if I hit this first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
I wanna know.
I think we're given superior position.
Right.
I think there's many moments where we're given little visual clues, just enough to give us superior position while keeping us in suspense about what's about to happen. Like in the kitchen, like we see the flames go, we see the knife be pulled off of the cutting board by itself. We see the flames rise, and it's very clear that the filmmakers that the storyteller wants us to know that he's there and he's manipulating the situation. And I think which we'll get into later, the midpoint is her aligning with us, like what we know to be true, that it's not her in her head. So I don't think that.
No, I agree. I just wanted I wanted to pull it out of you.
I think there's a Sundance version of this movie where maybe it's her, maybe it's real, and then the M. Night twist is it's
absolutely agree.
Yeah,
I was thinking about the hack version. This was the second time I watched it, and I was thinking about the hack version of this movie. Not to throw M. Night under the bus completely, but you know what I mean. Like I was like, you could totally make this movie where at the end it turns out that he actually did die. And then she has like a flashback, and everything that happened was her doing it.
It would like undermine all of the good thematic stuff.
Right.
Oh, man.
Like I said, the hack version. But anyway, yeah.
There was this when you were talking about her before world. I agree with you. The ordinary world is like after she escapes his compound. There was this weird like whiff of, it felt like a whiff of life instead of a whiff of death, right? Like she's getting a taste of what life would be like if she could let herself not be haunted by him, right?
Right. And at the same time, it's almost like the things that need fixing, but you see, the things that need fixing, so that's the Blake Snyder term, like in the setup where a character, you kind of set up how they need to change. Stasis equals death. If they stay that way, they're basically dead. She can't even go outside. She's like shaky all the time. She's looking on, she's marking out her computer. So she's living in fear still. And it's interesting because usually, this is another Blake Snyder term, but usually caused by a shard of glass, right? And the shard of glass is the wound, the emotional wound that they can't pull out. It's still, the scar is there. The shard of glass is still in them. And that's kind of what opening sets up, right? It is the shard of glass in some ways. And then you get to see the flaw, the things that have to change. This person can't live like this. She's damaged from this trauma this abuse that she's had. And that's kind of where we start. And she needs this adventure that, and in the final scene, walk out with that triumphant music with that shit-eating grin on her face. Like, I'm going to kick some ass. Or I just kick some ass. So that's kind of those mechanics in it that I was really like, oh, this is very informative and instructional.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
I just to mention establishing everything prior, right? That's like the cleanest way to establish where we're going to be for the third act and where she has to go back to. Like you guys probably have a term for it, but like the world she has to return to, like you could maybe start this movie without ever showing us that house, right?
Oh yeah. Do you guys want to jump into the opening scene? Let's.
That's what I was trying to get us to.
Yeah.
Everybody knows we're not used to not being a person here.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see Bob's cues.
Yeah, sorry.
Jamie, do you want to talk about in media res?
Sure. And I really think the in media res here, so it really just means starting the story already deep into it or in motion or something like that. And I think this particular, somebody's coming in my door, motion detected at my door. I have the same house. I have the same house he does. I have somebody on the lot.
Yeah, it's actually you're living in the Invisible Man house.
It's like, oh no, the cameras are going to spot me. So in this particular case, like my take when I was watching this is that it's almost like we're coming in on the third act of another movie, right? Like this is the big finale scene where she makes her escape and she gets out. That's what I think a really good in media res does, is it makes you feel like this is a lived in space. So that, and the advantage of it is the audience is participating in it. Like everything she's doing, it's like a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of scenario. We have to do the math on it. It's not just told to us. I mean, it's not super hard to figure out what's going on. She's a great actor. It's shot well. We kind of know the situation. But it's so well done, just how they're showing the medicine and things like that. And she shakes the cup a little bit. Yeah.
So little things. Yeah. And some of the things that I noticed that I loved, because there's a ton of craft throughout this movie, but in particular in the first 10 minutes, the prologue, there's like so many things that we've talked about in previous episodes that I want to revisit. First thing, like what's the most cliche way to introduce a character? Waking up in their bed, right? So he takes the most cliche way to introduce a character and he gives us a new spin on it and makes it fresh. That felt very intentional to me. Like, I'm going to have her introduced in the most usually boring way possible and make it instantly gripping.
The student film way. He took the student film way and made it interesting.
And how does he do that? She pulls back the covers and he's clutching her. Like, she has to like pull herself away from him, and instantly we know, oh shit, like this is different than I thought it was going to be right from the start. They instantly right away create a urgency with a ticking clock mechanism, right? Like, is he going to wake up? So that entire 10 minutes we have urgency, like, holy shit, what's going to happen when he wakes up? So we have the clock is ticking from the moment the scene starts.
Once again, a great short film in a film.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always great short films and films.
He does the I've been calling it ever since we did the Die Hard episode, the McTiernan mapping, which is he finds a way to show the audience the various aspects of the setting that we're going to need to understand later. And he does it in a way where we're discovering things, as we're learning, we're discovering, we're like, okay, we understand the whole geography of the space.
Not a script thing, but still very important.
Geography, it's probably scripted.
It might be, but geography is usually directing. But either way, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And McTiernan was a master at that. Jamie, tell us who's wrong and right.
Jamie, do you map out things in your script?
Like the geography of a house?
Sometimes I more hint at it. Like I say, this is the opportunity to do it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Okay.
I mean,
you saying, do I do it like my own? And then I don't always, it depends. I guess it depends. If you really need the geography sometimes, but usually I probably wouldn't get that detailed as to like, I take a left turn to get here. I take a right turn 5 feet here, 5 feet. I wouldn't do that. But
I bet you if you go into the script for The Thing, the roller skating mapping where they're mapping out the inside of the compound and the thing, it would describe every setting. I'm on the side of write it. I write it. So, but I see your point.
I think it might depend on how important it is too, right?
I write all the sets. I guess that's the key. I write all the sets. Sometimes I do that. It just depends on the if you do need to map it out. There's certain stories, like if I was writing maybe Home Alone, I'd say, and then he runs into the living room and it's blah blah blah, and then he runs into the kitchen and it's blah blah blah. I do that for sure.
Okay, Bob, I hear what you're saying about the aesthetics for sure. That's all direction, but this is a writer director, so
it's true. He is right.
It's sort of null and void, right?
Right.
Okay, Jamie, we finally get to talk about this. There's something Jamie and I have been chatting about outside the podcast called the secret weapon. And Jamie, you do a good job describing like what the secret weapon is. Like, do you want to take it?
I'm expecting a Chekhov's gun.
The funny thing about the secret weapon, I hope it's what I think it is. So this is like the crossing the stream stuff and things like that. Is that what this is?
It's Jaws. It's the oxygen tank.
Yeah. It's like Jimmy and I were talking about it and we needed a name for it, a handle. And I couldn't remember I was pretty sure we decided on, I just didn't want to go off on something.
It's completely not what he was saying.
Yeah, because I think I used to always say, like in my slides and stuff to my class, it's like the thing that wins the battle is found on page 40 or something. It was some stupid thing like that. But it's kind of like it's best to be described in examples. Usually there's some hidden setup, and you know this when you watch movies. You're like, that's the thing. He's gonna use that to kill the chainsaw. That's gonna play. It's that thing. It's like crossing the streams. It's the loader in Aliens. You see that, and it's like the loader in Aliens is my favorite version of it, I think.
Yeah,
and it's a pretty obvious one, I guess, in some ways. I'm not sure that I thought it was obvious when I saw it because it's used in a character moment. Like she's proving that she has skills, and it's used in this way. Oh, okay, they found this cool way to do a new scene where she shows off her toughness. But then it's used later, it comes back into play. So it's it's really set up payoff, but it's that. But
it's more than setup payoff because it's like a specialized version of setup payoff that we see in movies all the time, and there's craft to it. Like we get the secret weapon like 8 minutes into the movie. Like I did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at the screen. The secret weapon.
There it is. There it is.
But the clever way is they show the invisibility tech, right? But we don't know what it is. We just get an intrigue, just like she does. She almost seems like she has never seen it before, and so we're instantly locked into like what is that thing that's important, and then the movie visits it twice. So I thought it was great craft there in the opening sequence. They established the secret weapon.
You could almost say the secret weapon comes in when they reveal he's an optics scientist, and you're like, okay, I get it now. Right?
Yeah, we get the elaboration, we get the orientation of what that tech might be about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It establishes the thematic battle about control versus loss of control. If you watch the sequence, I watched it. It's the only thing I rewatched for the podcast because I just watched this for the first time last night. From the minute she wakes up to the minute she escapes, there's a constant back and forth of her being in control and then losing control, being in control and then losing control, being in control, and that's what the movie's about.
Kind of like Solo, right?
Yeah, Solo.
The plus minus.
And Jamie, that's good news, bad news, right? That's sort of like the same thing.
Did I give that the wrong name? Sorry.
Yeah, Jamie, you want to
good news, bad news.
Good news, bad news for us?
Yeah. And I use good news, bad news all the time when I'm in my initial phases of plotting. But it's basically just saying, something good happens, and then immediately something bad happens. They have to react, and then something good happens, and it just keeps going back and forth. So an example would be like if you're in a fight scene, you pull a gun. Good news, they shoot it. Oh, it's empty. Bad news. The person comes at him. Bad news, but they hit him in the head with a gun. Good news, but then the person gets the gun. I don't know.
We talk about it at extent for the Solo episode because that movie is rife with it, right?
And we talk about it in lots of of the episodes, in the Die Hard episode in particular.
One that always comes to mind. Yeah,
this
Die Hard's the one that I always think of.
Yeah, and this one has not only just in this sequence, but throughout the movie, tons of great examples of that technique. Good news, bad news. But in for instance, the good news is she got out of the house. The bad news is the dog followed her. The good news is she got the dog's electric shock collar up. The bad news is he just knocked into the car and set off the alarm and woke up Adrian. So like, but what's awesome is that's also loss of control. So it's like, it's sort of like lent itself to the theme. Like it was great. Like that was probably very helpful for him. But then, and then the last thing I thought I brought this up before, which is at the end of the opening sequence, they really subtly establish like whenever her reliance on her family to get her out of these situations is her Achilles heel. Like she's self-reliant until it has to do with the people she cares about. And then suddenly she's no longer self-reliant and she's sort of like lets them take control. And like that almost gets her captive again in the end of the sequence. So
one other thing to mention about the opening sequence is in a lot of Leigh's interviews, he said that test audiences all said, "Oh, you need to show her with him before that."
I was about
you can't
to
just
say
start with that. Yeah. And he basically kind of blew that off. And I think it's instructional to writers who are getting notes from their friends or whoever that sometimes they don't have the best ideas. I think it's important that you're the one making the decisions, and if you have good reason to keep it the way it is. This is a dangerous thing to tell new writers because some new writers will never listen to feedback again. Jimmy's job will be screwed.
Also, just pragmatically, what movie it is? It's The Invisible Man. I think us not seeing him on the reveal till the end, that how would you not realize that's what's being done here, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the person who says that about your Invisible Man movie, is what I'm saying. Why don't I know who he is and what he looks like? He's invisible.
That's it.
That was kind of always his quote. Like I listened to a couple of interviews with him, and he was like, "Yeah, he said, I can do a lot more with just Elizabeth Moss's reactions, than having some scene where the guy slams a dish and says, 'You call these clean?' or whatever stupid thing." Right.
Yeah, in some ways there's a reminiscent, like it's almost like a Castaway horror movie, like a lot of this movie is just her. We're reading her face, her reaction. It works.
It's
just
so awesome.
It's just as a reactive piece.
This is a very minor thing, and I don't even know that this is screenwriting. I was sitting there trying to think of the opening image, and I think the opening sequence would be what I call the opening image of this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of that teaser.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that scene with the rocks, the waves crashing against the rocks, because I really dig that. There's something very evocative and mood setting. When I watched it this time, I've been trying to process like, what is that scene? Like, why is it? On one hand, it shows isolation and stuff, but here's the other cool thing I think it does. I think this movie is part of the Dark Universe. It's a remake of original Invisible Man, kind of. It kind of evokes those old Gothic movies where this house is up there on a mountain in
It's
an
a castle.
island. And
It's a castle.
it's a
Yeah.
castle.
Yeah.
It's a castle. And nowhere else in the movie is it like that. But in the beginning, it's like this little wink to the old black and white kind of beautiful shot, castle on the hill, the waves crashing.
The sound design is there. It's made of stone. It's huge. It's cold. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I read it as I'm being the script butcher here.
That's why you're here, Jimmy.
As it was just like symbolic. The rocks sort of blend in. This is really lame. I sound pretentious as shit. The rocks blend in with the background, right? You can't really see the rocks, and then the water hits the rocks, and you see the rocks in the foreground that you couldn't really see before because it's so dark, and the water reveals sort of this invisible rock to be in its full form every time the water hits it, which is we're going to see escalated and in the rain sequence that he can be revealed in the rain. So I felt like it was like sort of planting the seed for that later to like make us remember when she hears the forecast, like there's going to be rain and she's like, aha. I felt like the opening was sort of planting the seed in our head to make us like have that aha moment. Why is this so important? The rain, So, but maybe that's just me overthinking it.
No, I think but you guys brought up secret weapon. The rain is a secret weapon.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's it's sold like it's not sold as hard as maybe some other things, but the rain is definitely there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But what if we moved on from the opening sequence and let's talk about the midpoint, all is lost.
Okay.
It's interesting with this one because there's so many things in the fun and games that could be a midpoint thing. So it's debatable what you call the midpoint. You know, is it the scene where the Invisible Man punches the girl and they take her away? Is that the scene?
Right.
But for the one I think, because the email is almost just as bad as the punching the girl. One's isolating, so it's like he's slowly picking apart her world.
Mm-hmm.
I consider all of that the fun and games. And I thought the midpoint was when she found the phone. When she realized it's like, he's in the house. I know this is real. There's no doubt about it. It's on. Let's party. That's kind of what I said.
Well, that's when she catches up to us. Like you said,
yes,
Jimmy, with superior position, right?
Yeah, usually in horror, the midpoint is where the audience's superior position and the character's perspective align, right? So in Get Out, it's in Get Out, it's the moment where the other guy who's a victim and a prisoner shakes him and says, "Get out, get out!" Like and starts bleeding and like and Chris has to confront the fact like, oh shit, it's as simple as this. Things aren't as bad as I thought. They're worse, and that's when she finds the phone and she sees that he's hanging out in there. He's taking pictures of her. There's her missing, work that she had at the job interview that didn't show up. And bam, here's a text from him that says, "Surprise!" So yeah, Jamie, I completely agree with you. That's for me. And there are so many moments like when I was tracking this, I was like, this is the midpoint. I was like, shit, no, that's not it. This is the midpoint. No, but that's the big kicker, right? That's the one.
I mean, where else would it be? That's when her knowledge gets there. It has to be that, right?
And that sequence after that is so good too.
My question for both of you is: do you think is the fact that he would leave his phone on vibrate? Is that his own cunning or is that his mistake?
I think it's his cunning in some ways. I don't know why.
It's his cunning?
I fully agree. It's emotional manipulation. It's 100% tactic.
Because he knew that she would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's manipulating her. It's like just one tactic after another. He put all that stuff up there. Yeah.
It's like all all is lost.
It's funny. Well, the sequence after that, just before we get to the all is lost.
Oh, sorry.
My two favorite parts of this movie are these really small parts. So I tell you, I watched it a second time and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. I love this part. When that Uber driver, how long he the car.
You're breaking up, but I think
I just like the first scene because you're like, oh, why doesn't he hurry?
No, he does a 3-point turn. When she's running away from the monster, and it's like, dude, is this guy not driving away? Right? Yeah.
But once again, that's something she can't control.
She can't control. So it's not her.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Loss of control.
Also, at that point, the movie is actively genius in us trying to figure out the things the Invisible Man is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, Jamie, I agree with you. I love that scene because I'm also like, wait, is there any way that he could get in this car? That's what the only thing I'm thinking about.
Already in there?
Is he already in there? How could he already be in there? Like, what? I'm trying to actively figure out the puzzle pieces at that point.
Yeah, it's great
because it sold me on the fun and games so much.
Yeah.
No, I was totally waiting for him to be in the car somehow.
Yeah.
So,
but at that point, she's also caught up, but she knows that can't happen the way that it happened, right?
That's right.
Because she got in the car, the other doors didn't open. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So my other favorite part, which leads up to the All Is Lost, is the waiter in the restaurant. I love the waiter in the restaurant.
Yeah.
I love that. I'll give you a few more minutes with the menu. I mean, that guy, he kills it. I love that.
He's so good. We're going to talk about, we'll revisit that scene later, right? Because I got a bunch to talk about with that scene. But maybe let's bring it back later. It's later on the talking points.
I actually have it pegged as my All Is Lost.
Okay.
That's also, I wrote it down on the thing. That's my All Is Lost too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that scene.
Yeah, I think there's the whiff of death there. She dies. It ends up with her in the mental institution or the hospital. To me, that's the All Is Lost. Like, he's got her. He's killed her sister. There's no hope. She's trapped. I kind of pegged that.
I think this is the most important scene in the whole script, for me. And I wanted to try to figure out like what it's saying. So like one thing I love, I think there's a great instructive lesson here for horror writers. I heard Kevin S. Tenney. Do you guys know who Kevin Tenney is? He directed Night of the Demons, Witchboard, some great horror movies.
I know Night of the Demons, so.
Yeah. Kevin S. Tenney said, I went to this thing at Universal Studios, but I wasn't there for a pitch meeting. I was there as like a student. He was giving a talk on horror writing, and he said, if your character, I'm paraphrasing him, he said, if your main character makes all the right choices, does all the smart things, and the villain still gets the upper hand, that's how you make a villain truly scary in a horror movie. And she asks her sister to meet her in a public place to try to prevent him from doing anything like what unfolds, and he still does.
Jimmy, I love that how even the movie, I know it's craft, it's not script writing, but the movie establishes it's a packed restaurant with an open floor plan.
Yeah.
I love that. How could he do anything?
How is he going to get her? And he does. But I wanted to ask you guys what you think here. This is going to lead into the arc, which I don't have an answer for, but I think the secret, the answer is in this scene and in the scene in the end that we'll get to the bottom of it. But I'm trying to figure out what the lesson is that the story is trying to teach her here, because she says to her, like, she's calling upon her sister for help, right? So once again, that's what leads to all these problems. She literally says to her sister, I need your strength, right? Instead of her own. And it's a wrong way goal and it's a wrong way tactic, but I'm not sure what it's trying to say about what her arc needs to be. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's because we're in the kind of Me Too social message in this story where she is a victim. Does she really need to learn a lesson to like keep the predator away? I don't think that's her lesson.
Yeah,
that would seem wrong. That would seem wrong. Yeah, it would seem.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm trying to figure out what it's trying to say. Yeah.
I think when I really look at the character arc here, I look at the beginning and I look at the end. So her ordinary world, she's afraid to walk outside. She's scared to walk outside. In the end, she's strutting off confidently. So I think if there's a message, I think it's you're in the right, trust your instinct, and follow your path, and ultimately it'll lead to redemption.
I don't know, because gaslighting, because like don't allow yourself to be gaslit is just like an extension of something else.
It's also blaming. It also feels like it's blaming the victim too.
Yeah, and I can't exactly, and I can't put my finger on exactly. It is blaming the victim, and it's she gives herself permission to not not need their to not need their validation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She definitely goes from being scared to being confident, but I feel like it's less about. It's weird. It's almost like she gets her mojo back or something just by fighting through it. And I don't know that there's a lesson, so to speak, as much as it's almost like she has a flat arc. It's the arc of awesome in some ways.
Yeah. Can you explain what that is?
Right. Everybody else is off.
Which aligns with the fact that like her one Achilles heel is the safety of her loved ones. That's a superhero, you know. That's like goes with your arc of awesome, right?
So you're saying that she has nothing left. It's teaching her she has nothing left to lose at this point, and now she's capable of beating him because she
already has what she needs.
She did, right? But I'm also adding to the fact that losing her sister opens her up to the fact that now she can do anything because she's lost everything.
Right.
Right?
True. Yeah, no, that's
like
true.
She's lost, like she doesn't really have any attachments anymore except for James and his daughter, but
there's something, I'm trying to put my finger on it, about like there's multiple scenes where she has like this story's version of like the confessional where she's like saying out loud the problems she needs to fix. And like when we first meet her, she's basically like letting the family members gaslight her into thinking that she's gonna be safe. And then as the story unfolds, they continue to gaslight her. And then when we get to the part where Adrian has staged it so that it looks like his brother is the killer and that his brother kidnapped him, she changes her tune. And there's growth there. She says, like, it's the first time in the movie where the people she cares about are gaslighting her. And she says, no, you're wrong.
It's him.
He is not the victim here. She says that she literally uses that line. And I don't know what that arc is, but that's where that's the moment of growth. And then the climax just like solidifies that, you know? So Jamie, you just asked like, what is her arc? And I was like, man, this is very complicated. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it was, it's there. Like I see
you feel it, right? You feel it. Yeah.
Feel it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, her smiling at the camera at the end is a change.
Yeah.
It's not easy to explain.
Yeah.
But it's there.
It's those before and after snapshots, you know, like a great way. Jamie, you've used this many times. Like, what are the things that the character does in the climax that would they have done them when we meet them? No. So,
like a great example would be there's no reason in the beginning opening scene she didn't just go to the kitchen, get a knife, and slash his throat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like what I wanted to ask you guys, I wrote this. This was a perfect segue to like the question I forgot to ask you guys is so like what we usually use to diagnose to figure out what the arc is what is the choice in the climax she makes that she wouldn't have done, and like what does that communicate? Well, like she's trying to get him to tell the truth so that other people will believe her, right? But he still won't admit the truth. So there's literally no chance for anyone to believe her. So then she takes matters into her own hands and kills him, right?
Right.
So what does that say? Like,
it's kind of like instead of running and hiding and feeling like she has to hide her life, she's just going to go and take care of business and end this motherfucker.
And don't you think that also is what the all's lost moment teaches her too? Like you're on your own.
Self-reliance.
Like, you can't even, the thing you thought you needed is actually gone. So
yeah. Okay. So we're all circling around something
there. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'd love to have this same talk with like a female screenwriter that's really in touch with this.
Yes, three white dudes talking about.
We might not be qualified because I've seen criticisms of the movie that it addresses these like gaslighting, stalking, harassment, Me Too, but I've seen criticisms that the third act doesn't deal with them.
So
it turns into a genre movie and not dealing with that. I don't know. I'm not smart enough or in touch with that enough to know, but I've seen that criticism.
I will just say I debated sharing this, but whatever, fuck it. It's a false equivalency to a woman being in a relationship that's controlled with a controlling man. But I was in a relationship with a woman who was controlling, and I found myself multiple times in this movie triggered, like fucking triggered. Like,
yeah, I've heard that.
like I was not anticipating to be feeling like shudders of like a past relationship from over a decade ago and being like, oh my God, like I've felt this before, like I can't escape, like, and like I'm being like threatened with like my family threatened, and like
Jimmy, I've had friends say that just the trailer makes them never want to watch it.
Wow.
So some people won't even watch the movie because of just the trailer conveying even that small sense of what you're talking about.
But yeah, we are not
No, we're not qualified to say it, but yeah.
We are not qualified to like put our fingers on that, but
figuring out the theme is important though. Like what is it trying to say? I don't.
Yeah.
And Leigh, again, in the interviews, if you watched his interviews, he acknowledged, male screenwriter writing this material. He said he leaned heavily into Elizabeth Moss's input for a lot of things.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
He really dipped his toe in a touchy subject, but
yeah,
it's giving care. It doesn't feel like it's meaningless. It's just not easy to define. Right? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. It's not clean, but you feel it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that the audience is cheering for her no matter what the theme is. So it's not like it's
It's empowering for sure.
Yeah.
It is absolutely empowering.
She slits his fucking throat.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'd say too, she's one of my favorite types of characters, and it's what you mentioned. She does all the right things. She does smart moves. She's very capable, and the obstacles keep coming at her. Another movie like that I really dug was 10 Cloverfield Lane. I thought she was very capable and kept bringing it, but the situation was just impossible. It goes back to story DNA, and this is something Sorkin said. He said nobody ever said about a movie, the obstacles were too hard. I hated that movie. The obstacles were too hard. What we want to see is people at their best, like making smart moves. I mean, in some movies. And the obstacles are just so great that they have to keep up in the ante.
You force them to make impossible choices over and over.
But on that, and since we're still slightly on All Is Lost, what do you guys feel about the suicide attempt scene? Because there is that moment in the suicide attempt where I almost feel like the movie is gaslighting us, because there is a very viable reason where you could believe she was actually being serious.
Yeah, I think they're playing with our expectations. I think it's just an expectations thing, right? And it's confirmation that she's growing, right? Because we expect who she's been to
commit. She would commit suicide if she was the person she was.
She has two choices, right?
Yeah.
She can fight fire with fire, or she can succumb to his, manipulation and control. And so, like, the movie makes you think for a second that she has succumbed to his manipulation and control. And it does it again when she calls him, because the brother offers her the choice. You can end all this by just calling him. So we're left in suspense what her tactic is there when she makes that call. Is she succumbing to his manipulation and control, or is she growing and going to turn it against him?
I remember watching it the first time, and I was like, if she didn't say gotcha right there, I would have assumed he just interrupted.
Right.
And she made the decision on the spur of the moment, not that it was an actual plan.
I'd be interested to see what the script says.
Yeah, like, I really would love to read that.
Clarifies the intent of the character, or if it leaves it ambiguous.
Yeah.
Because I bet the script clarifies the intent of the character.
You mean during the suicide scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I hope I didn't cut you off, Jamie.
Wait, we can't hear Jamie.
That's why we're not hearing.
We can't hear him. Technical difficulties. No, we still can't hear you, Jamie. What's funny, if anyone listening, is that we had technical difficulties with Jimmy originally, and now today, Jamie was fine the other day.
we did a practice run of this, and I was the one who was freezing and muting and really awkward, and now Jamie's just freezing.
It's freezing up. Nope. Do you want to disconnect and reconnect, Jamie?
Oh, this is fantastic.
It's fine. I might not edit this out just for fun.
This is.
I think anyone that listens to the show will enjoy us
fucking
fumbling through this. Jamie's gonna try to reconnect.
This is amazing. I feel like I should start telling a version of the Aristocrats joke.
Right.
Cue the cat. My cat. You guys can't see. We're on video chat. My cat keeps going like, "What are you doing, Dad? Like, what the fuck?" And like climbing on my laptop
I've seen it,
while I'm trying to like speak intelligently, and she keeps climbing on me like, "Well, this looks cool. What are you doing?"
It's amazing because we used to do the show with such a focus.
Yes.
We're in a small room in my house. But we had cleared our schedule.
No distractions.
Nothing.
Yes.
I know.
This is, like very different circumstances for recording this episode. It's gonna make a great time capsule for sure.
No, I'm sure. And you know what? We'll do more of these. So we're planning to do about one a month.
Yeah.
So
that's the goal.
you'll hear more of these from us. Hey, we can hear you. I can hear you. Can hear you, Jamie.
Hey, Jamie. So recapping, I just was doing the Aristocrats joke. No, you missed it. It was awesome. It was my finest hour. Jamie, what do you think about the suicide reversal in the shower scene?
Yeah, what I was saying was, I think that scene might have been something that was written in. It felt like one of those post-production notes. Like we got the suicide, you grab, oh, it's not saying what we thought it was, and then maybe they reshot that one. Like even that scene, her saying it to me, I thought was a little forced when I watched it. Like she said something like, "There you are." That's what she says.
Yeah,
like,
she says, "There you are."
Oh, she does say that. I thought it was gotcha for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even when I watched it, I was like, yeah, that doesn't really fit with the vibe of the whole. I don't know. It's not a big deal, but it felt like one of those clarity things, just to make sure, like, yeah, I got the, like you said. I think the subtext is gotcha. The
subtext is gotcha. That's why you're remembering it that way, Bob. Mm-hmm. But no, Jamie, do you think that like they were trying to mess with the audience, or do you think they?
I do think they meant to trick us into thinking she was committing suicide. Yeah, just like she tricked him.
Yeah.
But yeah. I definitely think it was a trap, and I think it's her going to warrior mode in some ways.
Exactly. That's like that's the confirmation. Like she's in it to win it, dudes. Like, definitely.
That was the thing about the arc. Like there's that Jeffrey Schechter book. My screenplay could beat up your screenplay. And one of the things I was trying to map on this, he has that arc idea that a character starts out as an orphan, they become a wanderer, and then they become a warrior. And so first act, they're orphan. Middle of the second act, before the midpoint, they're wanderer. And then they're warrior. And then usually in the third act, they're martyr. I don't see the martyr part here. No. I think she stays warrior.
But I would argue.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's the theme.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. What's your argument? Did you say you would argue?
No, she's pretty much. I feel like she's a warrior when we meet her, and it's like it sort of gets stripped away.
I think
she's more innocent though. There's an innocence to her then still.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
It's more like an escape. She's trying to run, I think.
To be a warrior, you have to be put through hell, don't you?
Yeah, that's true. Desperate. Well, we're seeing the climax of a previous movie of hell for her. So
okay, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there.
I'm just being contrarian.
No, you're not wrong. There's a movie. There's a horrible, dramatic movie about them just living their lives together.
Where she's like, I have to get out of here.
Well, she's kind of doing it's kind of a Handmaid's Tale type of thing with within that house.
Definitely.
Oddly enough, it's the same actress, but so there is a movie. There's what does Jamie always say? It's the movie before the movie.
What is it, Chip?
Isn't there a term for that?
The off-screen movie. There's
the off-screen movie. Off-screen movie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This has a good off-screen movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. As far as where were we? The one thing I wanted to bring up was, I know that Jamie, you had to love, is I think this movie is a prime, maybe one of the best examples in recent memory of a movie that doesn't even bother with double mumbo jumbo and completely sells all the science, technology, and any question you'd have. It leaves it all on the floor, just like, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like this is a movie where people are like, how did he do that? Or how did this work? You know?
It doesn't. It's missing the Dino DNA video.
Right.
Which I appreciated.
No, and I think it's totally not missed. You know?
I feel like we've even seen the suit before in other movies. You know, there's been versions of it in other movies, so we didn't even need to be filled in on it. It was like, we get it. We've seen it.
I felt like I was watching The Predator, a human wearing the Predator suit.
Yeah.
Like slightly upgraded one.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I've even read articles in you know, about similar technology that the government is trying to use, like camouflage nets and screens that use cameras and HD quality, something. So
that's awesome.
It was all like, yeah. The second I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, one of those things. You know, I didn't even have to tell me anything else.
Popular mechanics.
Well, I find it interesting that if it does bother to do that, that's when you would actually start questioning how it works.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I'm just saying it's like a screenwriting lesson. Like if you don't dip your toe into that and you just let them accept that something exists,
it works sometimes.
It works sometimes.
It definitely works.
It so works here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an invisible suit. Got it.
Yeah.
Done.
Got it.
Doesn't matter how it works. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Fine. Yeah. That's all. I just remember from our Endgame discussion, we talked about that at length because people are picking apart time travel.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't feel like I've ever heard any criticism of this movie. Never heard anyone say, how does the suit work? I don't understand.
My thing when I was watching this time, I was like, if I was her, I'd get a bunch of those motion censored fish, you know, that sing, and I would like make a suit out of them. That'd be my third act. Is she comes out with a suit, they're like the bass singing. Just put them all over the room. There's a scene where she puts coffee grinds, and I'm like, no, I'd go to the toy store and buy every motion controlled thing, and just put them all over the place, and they would be all over my floor, and I'd just be sitting in the middle waiting.
I thought that was an awesome tactic, though. I loved
the coffee grounds,
the premise delivery with all the different tactics, the coffee grounds, the paint, the fire extinguisher. Like they definitely did the whiteboard of what are all the ways she could possibly reveal that he's standing there.
They didn't have motion controlled fish, so
they didn't.
Maybe that didn't make the cut. Maybe they were like, nah, not that one. That's too stupid.
I mean, they also showed, even while sidestepping this, they also showed how it malfunctions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess the paint's a malfunction too. Like you can't stop something from physically having space, right?
Right. They established its limitations, which is great, and then that helps us understand how she's gonna like continue to work on using that to her advantage. Like definitely.
Right. Like it goes with her further plans.
Yeah. Exactly.
What else?
The one thing about that suit. The one thing about that suit, it kept a really long charge.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
If I had a question, that would be the one. Actually, I was like,
it's solar powered, and he just like stands outside, and he's good.
Could be.
I was also like, how this is okay. Now we're actually defeating the purpose of what I said. But how did the cameras work under his feet? Okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Still, the movie does an amazing job at sidestepping it, though.
Yes, and it works.
Right. Like, I mean, anyone that's going into this movie was expecting a supernatural Invisible Man, or if it's science-based, we were expecting like Chevy Chase or the original. You know what I mean? Like, the body goes invisible, or Hollow Man. You know? Yeah, they redefine what it is. Right. I'm looking. Sorry, guys.
Oh no, it's okay. I know where we are. I can.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're putting a face on an invisible antagonist. We talked about that, didn't we?
We've talked about. No, we didn't. So like this movie's really instructive in that a lot of movies you don't really have a main villain, and while this one does, he's invisible, right? So like in order to keep the audience feeling like there's like this overbearing force of antagonism, when you don't have like an easy answer for that, you put a face on whatever it is, right? So like Jamie, I believe in the past you used the example of Nurse Ratched is for like the institutions and the social problems of the institutions, right? Is your antagonism, but you need to put a face on it. And with this one, the brother Tom is my favorite thing about this movie. I think Tom is like really important. If you get rid of that character, I think the movie falls apart. Like Tom is the face of the brother. I mean, is the face of Adrian.
He's also completely integral to the plan.
Yes.
He can't not have him.
And like he's the way to like make the audience feel like Adrian is there even when we don't see him, besides the dread and the like from a writing standpoint. And what he reminded me of was we've talked about in the past, like in a lot of movies, but not all movies, a lot of great films, the reason the villain is great is because they're like the circus mirror version of the hero. Like if the hero makes all the wrong choices, they will be the villain. Luke will be Vader if he makes all the wrong choices. In Speed, Jack's character, Keanu Reeves, if he makes all the wrong choices, he could become Dennis Hopper, a like disgruntled bomb squad officer. Like, and but this one was more like it reminded me of Neo and Cypher. Like if Neo makes all the wrong choices, he becomes Cypher. So I thought it was really interesting. Like if Cecilia makes all the wrong choices, she will become Tom, right? This guy, who
bows
woman,
to
like,
his brother
under his control and does his bidding for the rest of her life. And I thought it was really effective in that he's like a negative reflection, right? Like he shows us like the end we're rooting against for Cecilia, and it was really effective for me.
Yeah. So Tom is, if you ever want to watch a really great show that nobody ever watched, the Patriot on Amazon Prime is like one of my favorite shows for the last couple of years. So good. It's kind of like a Cohen. Yeah, it's like a Cohen brothers take on the spy game that's not burned after reading. It's this really quirky show that's really hard to describe, and that's why nobody watched it. And he's the star of it. He's really good.
Okay.
So anyway,
okay.
Yeah. It only has 2 seasons, and then because nobody watched it, and then they were just like, "Yeah, we cancel." It has the guy from RoboCop too. I can't think the guy that was in '70s Show. He's another.
Oh
star.
yeah, love that guy.
Oh yeah, Clarence Boddicker, right?
Clarence Boddicker.
That's his RoboCop name. Not Damn, what's What's shame for me for not remembering that. I'm looking it up.
Too. Yeah.
No, I do think this movie missed an opportunity because it almost has. The guy Harry Lime in the I can't think of that.
Kurtwood Smith. Man. Anyway, go ahead.
It has this famous it has this thing where we build up this character but we don't see his face, but then his face is revealed. I thought this movie missed an opportunity to put Tracy Morgan in the role of her husband.
Dude, it would be my favorite movie of all time if that was true.
Like that's a big thing. Like at the dinner table when we finally see him. Tracy Morgan.
I mean, you're joking, but imagine that'd be the most unique movie you ever saw. It's same script. It's Tracy Morgan.
It'd be like some weird Kevin Smith thing.
Yeah, right. It was some odd turn.
Massive tonal shift. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, in all seriousness, no, the guy does have a face. It's just we don't see it physically. We understand who he is completely.
No, right? I know, but like you need to. A lot of scripts I read, the antagonism is feared by the character. We hear about the antagonism a lot, but the antagonism does not show its face except once every like 25 pages. And if you take the brother out, there's like very little visual evidence that there's an antagonist for this movie. And so the way that he gets around it from a writing standpoint is he created this brother character so that we feel the brothers, like we feel this extra punch of threat from the brother even when he's not around. So
it's pragmatic for the story.
Yeah, he makes it motivated and organic. He does that in a motivated and organic way.
Did it remind you guys of Scream at all? The end reveal of Scream where there was two ghost faces?
I didn't even think about that.
It totally reminded me of Scream because I was like, oh, there's two of them. That's how it all happened. You know, like the actual structure of the villain's plan is only possible with the two, right?
Yeah, it's a double. Yeah, it's an aha.
Did you ever think the twist might be that the brother was the Invisible Man?
Yes. Yeah. The first time I saw it, I was like, maybe that guy did actually die. Once again, the movie about gaslighting the audience.
Yeah, it's playing with it.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Right.
Your feelings are
also I know this is a small thing, but when I originally watched the movie, there's a moment in the when it's raining and the attack that happens in the parking lot where you have this moment where you almost assume that what's his name, Adrian, has a moment of sympathy and doesn't kill the security guard who has witnessed the fact that she's not crazy.
Right.
And he just walks past him. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh, well, that's dumb. And then I realized later, I was like, okay, that's genius. Because he's literally not killing that guy to frame his brother. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I didn't even realize that. So, I thought he shot him as he was walking away.
Because if he doesn't shoot him, that's the one man who has seen the suit. So then that can prove that Elizabeth Moss is not crazy. And he leaves him alive. And I was like, that's really stupid. They got to deal with that. And the way that they deal with it is that was him leaving a witness to frame his brother later.
Gotcha. I didn't catch that.
Geniusly written. I didn't realize that until I got to the end of the movie. But I was like, oh my God, I was mad at the movie and then totally redeemed itself.
Fucked with you again.
It fucked with me. Yeah. Do we talk about Praise the Killer?
We didn't. This one has another great example. So Praise of the Killer speeches is something we've talked about in previous episodes, but for those of you who haven't heard those, it's a term that I learned from Robert McKee, and it's basically when somebody who the audience regards with power in the story, in this case the brother, has power over Cecilia when he says it, gives us a speech about how awesome and scary the villain is, right? And so some famous examples of this are Dr. Loomis in Halloween talking about Michael Myers, for 30 years I tried to keep him inside, and Quint, the Indianapolis speech in Jaws, and Kyle Reese in Terminator, he will not stop until you're dead. And then this one has, it's sort of like a tag team Praise of this Killer speech. It's in that lawyer scene where Cecilia is saying basically I'm not going to quote it word for word, but she says I was trying to get away from him and he saw what I was thinking and he knew what I was thinking. And he said, if you ever try to escape me, I will find you wherever you go and I'll always be there. And I'm going to make myself invisible and I'll be standing right next to you and you won't even know it. And then the brother chimes in and is like, yeah, he fucking sucked. And he's a genius. And it's a great, I'm not giving it justice, but I don't want to read 3 paragraphs right now.
Right. We get it.
But that scene, if anybody at home, from a writing standpoint, revisit that scene in the middle of the movie with the lawyer where she's talking about his plan, that he told her the plan. He told her he was going to do it. And that makes him extra scary. And it's a great example. And we've even noticed this in other genre films. We've seen this in Men in Black where they're talking about the alien. It shows up. It's in Demolition Man where it shows up in many genres, and I bet we could track it with comedies too, right? I bet we could track it with the great comedic villains. Somebody says something about them, but it's a great tool. It's a great technique, and this one has one.
Where does the Praise the Killer term come from? I feel like
McKee, right?
Robert McKee, good old Robert McKee.
Good old Robert McKee.
You know that half the listeners, the second we say his name, log off.
Because he's like half hated, half loved type of thing.
I think he's like 90% hated and 10% loved, and I happen to be in the 10% love. Yeah.
Well, you're such a lovable guy that it offsets it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got great stuff, McGee, but it's just buried in a big tome, and he really wants you to come to his class.
Yeah, and I've been to them, and they're hysterical. He's just like his caricature in Adaptation. He's just like that.
And well, it's weird to me that would, but like the Praise the Killer thing, that's so standard. I mean, that's what. How could you look down on that? But you're saying they look down on him, not on the actual advice, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. It's more like the guruism aspect. I mean, everything, all these books, and everything we're doing in all the episodes of this podcast, it's things you are doing, right? It's things you as a writer are doing, but you don't have a name for it. And what I love about classes and books, and I love all the books. If I can find one nugget of wisdom in 300 pages that I didn't have before, for me, it's value. And I love someone pointing out something that I've been using that I didn't realize was a technique that could, and then somebody saying like, dude, and if you did this with the technique, like in this movie, you could wield it even stronger. And then from that point forward, I hit a situation, pull out that, flathead screwdriver, and I can screw that screw in a lot easier. So, but a lot of people don't like people like McKee telling them these terms and rules, tools, not rules.
I feel like that's been my experience doing this podcast with both of you. Thumbs up on that.
What do you mean?
Oh, just like I'm like, oh, that's what that's called.
That's
like I've watched enough movies in my life to know things, but I don't have a name for them.
And that's not even what it's called. It's what some
guy called it. Right.
And it's catchy, and so now we can talk about it easier.
Yeah, we can
label.
use a thing.
Yeah.
Well, we got only like a few things left here that you guys want to talk about. Premise folding in on itself. What is that?
Jamie, I wanted to get you to talk about this. The premise folding in on itself.
Yeah. We call this kind of, this is a name just we came up with. We call it like a premise. Yeah, it's a premise pretzel.
Yes. Fuck
yeah. That's good.
Okay, so yeah, he's got Praise the Killer. We got premise pretzel.
That's right.
So McGee will be talking about it one day. And essentially, it's how many different ways can you twist and turn the premise, the various ways it gets delivered within a story. How many, maybe we have, and one big example I think in this movie is she's being attacked by an invisible suit the whole movie, and then at the end it folds back on herself. She attacks with an invisible suit.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like the perfect version.
It's the perfect. This movie has multiple versions of that. Yeah, Jamie. She's being attacked by the suit. It's just like in The Predator we talk about, like he literally becomes the hunter camouflaged in mud, hunting the predator from the trees in order to defeat him, right? The premise folds in on himself, and he becomes exactly what was hunting them. And in this movie, that exactly, the use of the invisibility suit, but also when we meet her, she's doing everything in her power to escape Adrian's compound prison. And then the movie forces her to go back into it twice. Intentionally,
yeah.
and folding that premise delivery in on itself and reversing what we saw before to be the bad thing, to show like character growth. And usually these premise pretzels show like how the character is growing and changing, either in a positive or a negative, and the escalation of the story. Just like we talk about in Demolition Man, they get into a car chase with the old like vintage cars instead of when they first get there, they're trying to learn how to drive the future cars. And then the climax of the movie is a car chase where they're using old vintage cars. So that's the premise folding in on itself. I mean, like another example, Sister Act. Sister Mary Clarence is like infiltrating a convent in order to escape the mob. And then the climax is the sisters have to infiltrate the casino to save her from the mob. So it's like these things are in the writing. Like that is like 100% construction, and this movie has like two huge examples of that, which I was like, this is really instructive. It's awesome. I bet that was one of the first things he put up on the board. Like, how's she gonna defeat him? She's gonna become invisible, right?
Invisible Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I think has been greenlit as the sequel already. And it's
Wait,
instructive
for real, or are you kidding? I don't even know.
No, I think it is for real. I think it has.
Oh, seriously?
I think they said there's going to be. Yeah, I think she's going to come back in the sequel and be the Invisible Woman. I don't know. The Invisible Woman part is the part I'm unsure about, but I think I saw that somewhere. Like, that's what it was going to be called.
Oh wow!
I feel like her story's over though. So okay.
Yeah, me too.
That's weird. Yeah.
Jamie, what were you going to say about it being instructive?
I think it's instructive because, like, in the early days of when you're brainstorming this stuff, when you're in that notepad like he's in, the next step is to start writing down scenes. And this is basically a premise pretzel is taking ideas and looking at them from all directions and knowing that your cool scene isn't just a payoff. It can also be a setup, and you can take it in another direction later on.
Yeah.
So it's a way to brainstorm ideas. Don't just do the straightforward idea. Look at it from all angles when you're brainstorming ideas.
Yeah. Exactly.
Good advice. You should write a book, Jamie.
Well,
and
put the premise. I'm going to put the premise pretzel in it too.
No. Call it The Premise Pretzel by Jamie Nash. Rule of threes.
I'll just touch on this real quick because there's so many in this movie, but I'll give two examples. So rule of three is like a very famous, commonly known screenwriting technique, and it's also known as echoes, where one way to like really feel a deep connection with a character is to see them put into a situation and then repeat the same exact situation, and that's a way to show how the character is growing and changing in a negative or positive way as the complications arise and the story is getting deeper. And this one has three really great ones. The first one is her escapes. So the first time she escapes, she's standing in the middle of the road. She's disoriented, and the car arrives, and it's her sister who's like rescuing her, and she's letting them take control of the wheel and try to rescue her. The second time she escapes the house, it's the Uber driver, right? And the Uber driver picks her up, and once again, she's relying on someone else to rescue her, and that almost gets her killed again, right? Almost gets her caught, and there's all the suspense, and she's still not learning like that she needs to rely on herself. And then the third one, they take that same situation when she escapes the institution, and the Invisible Man takes control of the wheel and comes after her, and she shoots at him, and the guy who was in the car manages to get out. She literally gets in the car behind the wheel on her own, and we understand, like, holy shit, for the first time she's taking control of the situation herself. She's relying on herself, and she heads to James's house to try to stop Adrian from hurting Sydney. So that's a great example of a rule of three and echoes and how to use repetition to show the character growing. And then another example is the lawyer meetings, right? There's three of them. And the first one, she's with her sister, and she's like not saying anything. She's letting her sister do all the talking for her, and she's just sitting there like terrified of the situation. The second time, she brings James instead of her sister, and once again, she's letting the people in the room control her. And then the third time, she's in the institution by herself, and he gives her the opportunity to get out. Like, he says, here's the phone, just call him and have his baby and you're good. And she like throws the phone away. So we see growth and change. Like, she's in an institution, but she's stronger than ever. You know what I mean? Like, she's alone for the first time, and she's stronger than ever. And then the other one is the use of surprise, right? The dialogue, it's dialogue reversal. So the first time it's the surprise when she gets the text. The second time, she's locked up in the bed in the institution, and everybody has left, and she's been drugged, and she's like completely vulnerable, and he whispers in her ear. You can't see him. He whispers in her ear, surprise. And then the third time, when he's got his throat slashed, and she's staring at him off camera so that the security camera can't see, and she says, surprise. So like that's a great way to show how the character has grown and changed just by that simple repetition. So it's just another technique. And once again, like the craft on display in this movie is fucking incredible. Like there's so many techniques at use.
So just to jump back on my sequel, I did some research while you were talking about
I love it. He's like, that's great. Let's talk about Invisible Woman.
That's great. I was Googling while you were speaking.
I have no idea what Jimmy just said.
Are you finished your aristocrats joke?
Yeah, right.
It basically is I see that Elizabeth Moss in a lot of interviews said she'd love to do it. And she has the suit and things like that. So I think that's where a lot of rumors. I kind of see a shady website that says Hollywood Reporter has revealed that it's already in production. I'd have to click on that link. Let me take a look if I can find it. So it's kind of shady. But here's the big point I wanted to say. Leigh Whannell is working on a Wolfman movie with Ryan Gosling. So
awesome.
That is real.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's a real thing. So
that's awesome.
So maybe we'll get that. Who knows if we'll
that's
get
cool.
this.
Fully in support of it. Yeah, totally.
Trust him. Yeah.
Check out his other stuff. If anyone hasn't that's listening to this, if Invisible Man is your only thing, watch the other movies he's written. And Upgrade.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love Upgrade so much. That's my type of thing. I think that brings us to everything we wanted to talk about, guys, right?
Yeah. Yep. Guys, I love this movie. I haven't watched many movies this year, so I don't have many to compare. But I think this is my favorite movie I've seen in 2020. I just loved it.
I love it too.
Here's a weird. You think? I mean, I don't even know if they'll have an Oscars this year. But do you think this could be up for things just because there's limited movies?
Wow, I never even thought of that. I hope so.
Possibly. I mean,
it's kind of an odd choice, but
it's a genre movie, so it doesn't.
She's a tour de force in this movie. She's incredible in this movie.
Yeah, this kind of like the promise that she like. If you watched Us and you're like, she's great. This is everything that promised us. Take the character actor to the starring role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that she hasn't done other great work than that, but you know what I'm saying. In horror, right. I don't know, Jamie. I could see a Best Actress nod.
Definitely.
Maybe. I mean,
I could even see adapted screenplay nod. I mean, what's come out? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. There's going to be like so little. That's true. Yeah.
Does this count as an adapted screenplay, even though it's not really a remake? It's a.
I would think this would be an adaptation of H.
It would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even though it really isn't, like I said, it could be original. You could call it Invisible, but it'll count as one. I'm sure in the books it says adapted.
And the Invisible Man is not specifically owned by Universal?
I don't know.
Well, the book isn't. The movie is. So it's like one of those situations where there might be images like
there's probably trademark on the iconography. Yeah.
But you could make a movie called The Invisible Man and they can't do anything about it.
I don't know.
No, like Frankenstein, we could make a Frankenstein movie, but you can't have that bolts in the neck kind of green face. You can't do that.
Right.
But you can make a Frankenstein. You can make a Dracula movie.
Wizard of Oz.
You can't have Wizard of Oz is also public domain.
Yeah, public domain.
Well, I'm saying you can do Wizard of Oz. You can't have the red ruby slippers.
That's right.
I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah, you can't.
That's right.
Right.
Ruby slippers were for the
movie only. It's not in the books. So yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know about that about the Invisible Man. But do you guys have anything you want to plug in this hellscape of 2020?
Jamie?
Yeah.
Do I have anything I want to plug? It's Halloween. Go check out The Night Watchman. I think it's on Amazon Prime. What the heck? That's about all I got to plug. Nothing going on. Lovely Molly is on Shudder, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, both of you have something on Shudder.
Yeah, it's the first time Jamie and I both have something on Shudder, and Jamie was involved in WNUF Halloween Special. For anyone listening out there,
technically I was too, but go ahead.
I was co-writer, co-producer on a film called WNUF Halloween Special that we made in 2013, and it's on Shudder right now, which is really awesome. And And Shudder just announced that they have like 1 million subscribers, and it's on Shudder. If we have, I know we do have a couple international listeners, so if you have Shudder, it's on Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Ireland. So like there's plenty of opportunities out there to watch it. And also, Bob, and there's another, I mean, I got plugs galore. I never have this, but we're premiering our latest feature film, What Happens Next Will Scare You, at Nightmares Film Festival, which is going to be online this year, of course. And that is from October 21st to October 25th. It'll be on demand for $15. I don't have a link for it yet, but when I do, I'll be sharing it. So Bob worked on that movie. Jamie did not work on that movie,
didn't.
but
I saw an early cut a long time ago.
yeah. Yeah,
it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Yeah. But so check that out. It's fun. I'm sure the people will be like, I thought you guys did a podcast on screenwriting. What the fuck is this movie? But
oh God. Well, hey, by doing this podcast, I think all of us are open up to just like I listened to your podcast and I saw the movie you made. Okay.
But yeah, it's fine. You'll see me. You'll see me posting about that. Check out WNUF Halloween Special on Shudder if you have it, and What Happens Next Will Scare You at Nightmares Film Fest, which I'll be posting about at the end of October.
I think it's overtly cool that both of you have movies on Shudder in October right now.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's pretty cool. I worked on WNUF sort of, so there's that. Sorry, I'll take some moderate credit there, but I think that's everything. I think I don't really have anything to plug. You plugged that, I would have plugged your stuff, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you for listening to this rusty experiment.
Yeah, seriously, anyone listening, and thank you for anyone in this long period of time that reached out, commented, sent me messages. I had people who literally sent me messages asking where it was.
Wow.
And I know me and Jimmy had a hard time at the beginning of the pandemic. Jamie, I'm sure you could have just kept going. I know you could have. I know. Me and Jimmy were a little bit more emotional, I think. But thank you for everyone that reached out. It meant a lot to us to bring it back. So
to see the encouragement. And
I've never gotten.
Where's the show?
I know. I've never gotten that many messages about a show. So thank you for everyone.
Really heartwarming for sure, and a nice pick me up during this dark time for sure.
Right, and we'll definitely be back with more of these. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Bye.
Right. See you later.
See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.